Hello, welcome to Ray-ality TV. I'm Raymond, and today I'm joined by the state representative for District 6 here in Rhode Island and a sergeant in the Providence Police Department, Representative Raymond Hull. Rep Hull, how are you today?
Good morning. Good morning to your audience.
And thank you for coming on the show. It's a pleasure of mine to have you on. Just diving right into it here, a first question I usually like to ask elected officials just to get their background and their origin story. What made you want to get into politics?
I got into politics because my representative didn't answer a call that I called out to him one day. And I said, I can do that job and I can do it better. And with that, I did. And basically, I'm a people person anyway. So politics is just another extension of what I do anyways with people.
And now starting off to focus on the issues, a topic that I've covered frequently on the show whenever I interview state reps and senators, and that's the idea of term limits for members of the state legislators. It has support from both Democrats and Republicans. I believe Representative Lombardi had introduced it in the past, and Representative Bob Quattrochi on the Republican side had introduced it in the past. But if it did have a little more support, it could potentially pass and be signed into law. Where do you stand on term limits for state reps and senators?
I signed on the bill with John, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. Like I said, we all have a shelf life. We all have good intentions. We all have good ideas, but we all have a shelf life. And at certain times, I believe that even me, as good as I may be, it's time for me to move on. So that someone like maybe yourself or someone that's watching us today would say, hey, let's do it a little differently. That's all.
And since it's unlikely to pass, do you have like a set number of terms in mind that you would serve before deciding not to run for re-election?
Yeah, I would say at least the minimum you should be at least 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So when you're in your about your 14th year, that's really where you either made it or you broke it by that time, because you're learning the first 2, 4, 6 years. You're learning the groundwork, and you're staying in contact with your people. But after a while, either you're doing something that you need to stay, that's one thing, or you're just hanging around just to hang around. And I just don't want to hang around just to hang around. I want to be actively doing something for my constituents.
So 7 terms in total?
Yeah, I would say that.
And you're currently in your 5th term, so if you don't seek higher political office by your 7th term, you would make that decision?
That's correct.
And now looking at some of the issues facing Providence, because part of your district is here in Providence and North Providence as well, but part of Providence. One of the biggest issues that face the city of Providence is, public safety, the recent spikes in crime, along with those calls to defund the police as well. And in the discussions of addressing these recent spikes in crimes, you have some of those who say we need to address the root causes of crime, like housing and job programs, and having mental health workers address the mental health and addiction crises, while others say that the police department needs to be strengthened and for those calls to defund them to stop. As a sergeant yourself in the Providence Police Department, I'm curious to know, what do you feel needs to be done to stop these spikes in crime and ensure the residents in the city can feel safe?
Okay, you said a lot in that statement. I mean, you're all over the place, but they all intertwine eventually. So let me just start with what can we do about crime in the city? Now, first off, I got to make sure, in the way I always operate it, you got to make people feel safe. And you got to do it in some shape or form, because that's what they charge you with to do, to enforce laws. Because for the most part, we want to forget about the police. We want to know that they're there. We want to know that they're enforcing the laws. We don't want them to be abusing the laws. We want them to be there as part of our community. I've been a community cop my whole career. And if I'm not sitting at your table in my community, I'm sitting at someone else's table to be part of that community. With that in a nutshell, if we're not part of the community and don't make the community feel safe, also with dialogue, and it's not mostly enforcement, because you can do a lot of things by not locking people up. That's not what policing is, just locking people up. And I thought the CompStat that we eventually brought here to the police department, and they had throughout the cities, New York, Boston, and a few other cities that went with that culture of CompStat, I thought it was wrong, because what you're basically doing is you're getting a low-hanging fruit of people who are just trying to make their basic needs to move and to get into society. I'm not talking about the habitual criminal. I'm talking about someone who's right there at the line and might have done something just a little wrong to get by. The person who's doing two jobs. Children living in substandardized housing. And that's where, you know, as you spoke with your question, this all intertwines into everything. But my main focus is policing, and policing needs to be part of community to make people feel safe. And if they're not meant to be feeling safe, then there's a breakdown in the policing. And if we can't communicate, it's another breakdown. But policing is going to be here, some shape or form, because we do jobs other people will never do. But we want to know that they're there. And that's my take on your question.
And you are right, all those do intertwine because it's a multi-layered issue, and it's not just as simple as finding one solution for this complicated matter. And one of those solutions that a lot of those in your party have started to say over the past year and a half, a lot of them are saying they need to defund the police, and some legislators in our state's instances even abolishing the police, which has mixed reactions for a number of reasons. Are you on board with the defunding / abolishing police rhetoric, or against it?
But it's not for or against. It's understanding where police are at. And I don't necessarily believe that the legislators who are asking to defund the police understand where policing is in our society or where they need to be. Because when you say you defund the police, that means me personally, I would say, we don't need police. We don't need that form of policing. We don't need policing at all. That's a kind of a loaded question where I don't necessarily agree with defunding police. Do policing need to change? Absolutely. But do people need to get involved in their policing? That's the question. It's easy to step aside and defund police. What are you doing actually getting inside? Remember, police work for civilians. They are not a standalone entity. We sometimes make them stand alone, and the police sometimes want to be the all-know who-all in society. We answer usually to an administrator who is a civilian, and that civilian will dictate my path. That's the key to this. That administrator who dictates we're going this way, and the police will follow. So that's the key to this. But understanding that, because what happens is you'll get two sides of every issue, and they'll go into separated corners, and you'll never get anything accomplished. No, we ain't defunding the police. Yeah, we need to defund the police. Yeah, policing needs to change. No, policing doesn't need to be changed. There is that line in there that needs to be broken, where police become part of the community. And if, Ray, you're doing something wrong, I'm telling you, you're doing something wrong, and you're gonna change. And that comes from a civilian. We might have a police chief, but he answers to a civilian. And that police chief should be answering to the civilian who's saying, this is where we want our policing to be. And if the police don't want to be on board where they're going, get off or come on board. That's how I take it.
Is it fair to say that it sounds like you're more in favor of police reform and instances and introduction of more community policing?
I've been a community cop all my life. That's the only thing I know. And and it's worked for me. I'm in charge of public housing. I've been in public housing most of my career. I've been around the police department and other various jobs in community policing. It's what I know. I know it works. I know being involved with the community helps the community, makes my job a lot easier. But if I needed to call on help from the community, they'd be right there for me. So I don't know no other way to say it other than my 30 years in policing that I've been a community cop my whole career. And it works.
And you'd be against any instance of removing money out of the police budget to put in other areas, right?
I'm not against that. I didn't say that at all. No. If we can use money that makes my job a lot easier, and we give it into say what we're doing in the city right now, we're doing social workers and this. If they can work hand in hand to make my job a lot easier, it makes the community better, and we got some money that we can shift over there, by all means. Remember, it's not my money, it's your money, it's our money.
So allocating the money for those social programs to have social workers respond to, okay.
Yeah, but be responsible with it. Just don't do it just to be doing it, but be responsible so you get results. Maybe data, follow the results that help the community.
So kind of do that initially and wait and see the results before.
Yes. Because if you say no, and we don't do anything at all, well then, we're still where we're at.
And now going to another state, a statewide issue that has affected Providence residents, given how this tax seems unnecessary, which is the car tax. We're heading toward the end of the phase out, where we could finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I believe, to my understanding, that's 1 year left in that phase out that then Speaker Mattiello had
That's correct.
helped. Yep. So there's 1 year left in the phase out. Where do you stand on finally getting rid of this car tax?
Phase it out. Phase it out. That affects my Providence side fast, because the rate that they tax vehicles is crazy. I think it's 77,000, 78,000 on an automobile, and it doesn't fall off for 15 years. You're a poor person, just make it, and you got a halfway decent automobile. Your insurance, you've already paid for the car. You've already paid the taxes on it, and now you keep getting another tax on top of it. Well, you could use that money to put into other things. How about putting some money into the automobile to keep it running? And that's a real living issue. So absolutely phase it.
And while looking at vehicle-related issues that could affect your constituents, the possibility of the truck tolls moving further to the possibility of truck tolls moving to cars is one I want to talk about. So the speaker himself has gone on record on the show saying that it's only going to be trucks. However, he did mention that the only way it could be extended to cars is if the House, Senate, and Governor agree on a bill that would extend the tolls to cars as well. Where do you stand on the possibility of extending the tolls to cars, and how would you vote on it if it were to be voted on in the House?
Well, I guess you don't know my history. I voted no against the truck tolls, period, and was removed from a position that I had because of what my constituents asked for. With that said, if I'm against it then, I'm against it now. Because I know how we do in politics. We try to fill a hole, and the gantries are there. That's already up. Well, it's only a nickel here. It's only a dime. If you're really sincerely thinking about people, a nickel a dime may not mean nothing to me or you, but it means something to somebody else. And that's what you got to look out in politics, that it's not always about you. So I'm against it.
And now circling back to the Providence issues, the one that I frequently cover on the show is the city's pension system. I've brought this up multiple times with potential mayoral candidates, members of the city council, but I'm curious to get your take on this issue since you represent Providence on the state level. In your opinion, how could this issue of the city's pension system be addressed?
What I see now that Mayor Laws, the best thing that I've seen that he put forward and on the long time, better than the selling of the waterborne. You've got to get a hold of the pension. If you do not get a hold of the pension, it's only a matter of time where the city can't make its contribution because it's too lopsided. We all know that, what's it, 23% funded, 18% funded, whatever low number it is, we're there. Mayor Laws, and I have to his credit, wants to float a pension obligation bond. Now people get scared about a pension obligation bond, and rightfully so. They think of Woonsocket. And they think about, well, what's going to happen? Are we bailing them out? If you really dig into what he's actually doing, him and his administration, and understand it, it's probably the right thing to do now, because Providence is taking a firm hold on it. They're not asking for state money. They're just asking for the ability to bond for the pension. Now, there were some caveats that needed to be put in there, some safeguards, so that another mayor comes in and they go off track and they're not taking care of the pension. That on a state level could be addressed, and we could put these caveats into the law so that you don't go off track. The bond was designed for the pension. And if you strictly go off that mark, then the money should not be allocated moving forward. And the pension needs to be addressed. If it's not addressed, it's simple math. It's simple math. We'll go belly up. We won't be able to afford to make the payments that the city's obligated to make since they run a pension system.
And one thing when looking at the whole financial situation of the city alongside the pension system, while we're still on this topic, is the push to make these institutions like Brown University and Providence College pay their fair shares in taxes, since they own a decent chunk of the land in the city, and that money could even potentially be used for the pension system if we were able to get it. when I had talked to Councilman Salvatore on the show, he said in regards to taxing these institutions that if the state would let the city tax them, that it could happen. And given that you are a member of the state a member of the state house, I'm just curious: is that decision up to the state to be able to let the city tax these institutions?
Well, the problem is Brown has a charter that goes back before the damn state. And they let you know. But with that said, if you look at other states, you look at Massachusetts with higher institutions that are there, they pay a share and they get into these compacts where pilot payment in lieu of taxes in some shape or form. I don't like to pick on these institutions, but I know they understand that they have to pay something to the city because the city is it. They're not going anywhere. And the people here in the city, I don't want them to go anywhere. I want them to live, but I don't want them to be, they can't live. They can't afford to live here. Let's put it that way. I personally believe the right person and the right team could sit down and form a pact, much like New Haven does with Yale, much like Harvard does, and all other institutions in Boston, in the Boston region, Massachusetts. They could come to an agreement. I mean, a real hard-fought agreement. That if Providence goes and you go with it, it's not in your best interest to see Providence go to hell. And I think that can be bridged. For us to attack them and make them look like they're, vilify them, that's not right either, because Brown's a gem, Johnson & Wales a gem, PC's a gem, Rhode Island College is a gem, URI is a gem. Do you realize what they bring, the vibrancy into the city and the people that come here, that stay, that produce taxes, that visit restaurants, that use our infrastructure? That's all vital to a city. This is why smart heads need to get together. And I will tell you, and I've spoken to when Ruth Simmons was here, they weren't really against not helping out the city, and they do it in other ways. Maybe give money to the libraries in Watan Gagarin School and stuff like that. We could make that more robust in a way that, yes, there's a fair share being handed out evenly and not vilifying Brown or Johnson & Wales. Don't vilify them. Make them know, make them feel part of it. But the city needs to be open too. The city needs to be open too in the fact that they need to show their books what's going on here so that they're not throwing money down a wasted hole. And that's what needs to be addressed in order for them to get on board to come to some agreement. Because if not, they lose also. The city loses, they lose, and they know it also.
And now segueing into my next topic, that actually kind of goes off of that, what you mentioned towards the end, because I believe the current pilot program, to my understanding, ends in 2023, which ironically is, coincidentally, is when the next mayoral administration would start, because Mayor Lorza has term limited. So the new mayor will be elected in 2022 and then sworn in January 2023. And, we talked, for those watching, I've talked with Representative Paul about Providence issues. And even though he's a state rep and he's doing state issues too, but that's no accident. The reason why I chose to cover a lot of Providence issues is because we have a mayoral election coming up, and your name has been brought up a few times in the conversation. You'd filed to run for mayor in 2010. I believe in your recent report, it was like 30-something thousand you had raised, if I recall correctly. And you were on Mayor Paolino's show in the arena. You said that you'd make your announcement of your 2022 plans soon. I believe you had said the first week of August, if I recall correctly. And it's been some time since that interview. So are you running for mayor of Providence in 2022?
We haven't announced anything as of yet. We might be still interested in it, yeah. But I have no announcement to be made on your station.
Do you have a...
There's a possibility. Sure I do. I wouldn't lie to anybody, sure. Because I think the city needs to go into a direction for everybody, and it needs to move. It's just finding that right avenue for me right now to say, yes, I'm on board, I'm ready to go. And we're looking at that.
So you haven't ruled it out yet?
Haven't ruled it out yet.
And looking at the potential time frame, because I know you just mentioned that you won't be able to tell us if you are running or not on the show, but do you have a time frame that you could see before you would like have to make that decision, like make like a final decision? Is it this winter, January
Yes, you
2022?
would have to know before January, I will tell you that, so that everybody's on board for January and you start your campaign, because you're running full strength in January forward down to because you'll be at the primary. Primary is the fight in the city. And then you get ready for your general. But if you win the primary, more than likely you'll win the general because of the Democratic, the large Democrats that are in the city.
So by January 2022, we would know your intentions for the mayoral election.
Yeah, if I was going to run and announce, you would know by January.
And now looking at my final question that I ask everyone here on the show to keep tradition, and that is, in your opinion, what do you think Rhode Island is best known for?
It's people, in that you can go from one part of the state, from Newport, and be in the water, and go to the top of the state, be in the mountains. And the people are totally different, the outdoorsy, the beachgoers, the boaters. And then you come into the middle of the state. I love the middle of the state, Providence being Pawtucket in it, because the change in ethnicity in the city. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful to see the different people that are coming, and that you learn to appreciate other people. And that's what's a good thing about Providence, Pawtucket, Central Falls. And I was sprinkling into Cranston and into Warwick, and you'll see that. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a great thing, and how our state is starting to really grow. And I think it's exciting in the next 20, 30 years. As the state really moves from the 30 years prior, that I've seen it move from real tough time, from white flight out of the city, to now you've got nice young kids, white, black, whatever, moving back into the city and enjoying it. And they want to be here. And I see the families where I live that are coming back. And that's huge, huge. Because I can remember the time when I was a kid, when they were all moving out. I'm from South Providence. We grew up there. West End, I grew up in the projects. Then we actually bought a house. That was a big thing when I remember moving. And then everybody was leaving, And then all of a sudden I see that people understand they're no different than us. They want something. They want to live. They want to educate their children. They want nice neighborhoods. They want to be safe. They like good schools, So that's what I like, the inner part of the state. And I appreciate going to Newport and going up to Burrillville, Woonsocket. We're kind of unique. You can get everything right here in this state, everything, without even traveling far. But don't say that to Rhode Islanders. You're going to Westlake? Oh, that's too far.
That is so true. I remember one time going to Jamestown. It felt like it was forever, but it really was not that far away. Representative Hull, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine to have you on.
I thank you. Keep up the good work, because this is something new. I like this, So keep up the good work. Thank you so much, and to the people who see the interview.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And thank you again for watching this episode of Ray-ality TV. If you want to see future episodes as soon as they're posted on this channel, please click the subscribe button down below, along with the post notification bell icon to the right of it. I'm Raymond Bakari, and I'll see you on the next episode.